Hi there. Welcome back to Fixed Right Unplugged, where we talk about HVAC, life, and more. So today I've got the pleasure of having Mr. Gordon Smith. We call him Gordie. He is actually our field supervisor. So I know many of you, he's probably been to your home. Um, but Gordie is an incredible person, incredible technician, and we're very happy to have him on the team. He's coming up on 3 years. So I think you're about a month away from being here, 3 years now. He's been a tremendous addition to the team, and he's actually helped me a lot in life. And we'll kind of share, we'll get into that a little bit. If not in the middle of the podcast, certainly towards the end. But he just really impressed me as much in life as he has as a technician. So first of all, thank you for being part of the team, and I know this isn't exactly in your comfort zone, so
Yeah,
thanks for being part of the podcast.
sure.
All right. So, first of all, how did you actually get into the industry, Gordy?
I actually interviewed with Total Comfort when I was about 18 years old, and I went for a job interview, and I didn't know anything at all about HVAC. And he asked me, he says, Mr. Park Ridgway at the time, he said, "Why should I hire you?" And I said, "Well, I won't lie, I won't steal, and I'll be here on time." And he said, "Starting tomorrow morning?" And I said, "Yeah." And that was about 30 some years ago, and here I am still doing it.
It's very cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool because we always talk about, like, I think we're within a year of each other as far as experience in the trade, and also within a year of each other's as our age in general. So we both got in probably, I guess, right around 18, 19 years old.
Yep.
Or were you 19 or 20? Or actually, you said you were 18, right?
I worked for Bay Mills for a little while, and then so I was probably like 19 when I started.
Yeah. So both of us over 30 years in the trade now.
Yeah.
Got gray hairs to prove it, right?
I do. Yeah, a couple scars too, but
Right. So what did so you started there in Total Comfort. So what did your career path look like, beyond that?
I don't know. Can't really say I had a career path. I started doing it, and I really didn't like it too much. It was hot, and it was troublesome to learn, and I was kind of fumbling at a young age. And went to my dad one day and said, "I'm not sure what to do." And he said, "Well," he says, "you can do whatever you want to do." He says, "But as long as you're in that trade, you'll have a job for the rest of your life." He said, "It's very stable, and people are always going to need heat and air." He said, "But it's up to you." So I let that sink in and just kept doing it, and just decided if I was going to do it, stay with it, and just pursued from learning to do ductwork to just about anything else I could learn to do.
And actually, to the point, at some point, you actually were in business for yourself,
I
right?
did. I actually bought another company out in 2008 and had that until 2020 when I sold it to you and came to work here.
Awesome. And I know while you were right before you sold and joined forces with us, you'd actually had a little transition in there as well, where it kind of like a failed acquisition, for lack of better words. Another company was gonna, it kind of made you some promises, and you were working somewhere else. And the reason I even bring that up because your son Michael, was actually working here, and it's kind of how we got to know each other. But I remember Michael coming in one day and saying, "My dad is absolutely miserable where he's at." So you want to talk about just a little bit about maybe because we talked about last week's episode in part one about our competition, and again there we have good, bad, ugly in the world of competition, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that today because I really want to use this podcast as a platform for educating. Because we're certainly not saying that we're the only contractor in town, the only one that people can use, because we do have some very good competition in this area, to the point we actually will refer work. Like if we can't get to someone, and say we have a bunch of people that have like our service agreements, our club memberships, they have our loyalty. We're always going to be there no matter what because they've joined our memberships and they deserve our loyalty. Well, if we're booked up with club members and a new client calls in that we just can't get to, well, rather than sending them to somebody that we don't trust, we'll send them to somebody that we do trust. So we do have some good competition, but on the other side of that spectrum, there are some companies around here that we would not refer. Now, we won't call any company out by name, certainly, but I know this particular company, there was some stories you shared with me that I think, again, without calling anybody out, just some things I think are worth talking about a little bit, just to give homeowners a little perspective of, like, maybe questions to ask, or if you're not going to choose us, what are some things that you kind of can share that are worth staying away from?
Um, there were some times when I wasn't sure exactly what to do on the jobs when some purchase pieces of the equipment. And they kind of made comments to me of, just do your best and, wash it off, clean it, whatever you could do with it, make it look like, you serviced it and everything was taken care of, and it wasn't the inspection or the service that needed to be done to it. There was also a few times where some trucks had come back to the shop, the doors had opened and some liquor bottles were falling out of the truck, and I brought it to his attention, and it didn't really seem like it bothered him too much to really say much about it. He said he would say something to him or something, and it just kept reoccurring, and it's short-lived for me in time for me to move on somewhere else.
Yeah, that's not exactly a place to hang your hat very long, is it?
No, it's not. It's not, especially not for me, and that's not my style by any means. Anybody who knows me knows that. So
Yeah, yeah, because one story I remember you sharing is somebody had gone to clean an oil furnace, and they called and said, "I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do," and so I just wiped down the cabinet like, "Yeah, that's not cleaning an oil furnace."
it is
It's,
not.
so stuff like that, like, and the purpose of this podcast is not to bash any competitor out there. Again, we will never call a company out by name, but in part one, we talked about like not all contractors are created equal, and we just want to share that there's always somebody out there that'll give you a cheaper price, but a cheaper price does not mean you're getting a better service. And that's one of the things the reason I called last week a part one, and I want to extend on this as a part two, is I want to make sure that we at least share some kind of at least three primary pricing strategies within the industry. Like, why do we go to market or charge what we charge compared to what so and so over here charges versus so and so over here. Just kind of use this as an opportunity to educate people as to price versus value. Because you can have, one extreme to the other, right? And you can have the cheap person that's just doing a terrible job, or maybe using something as a loss leader to get in the door. The other end of the spectrum is people are just charging an exorbitant amount. Like, I remember actually something you shared about that particular company. Well, I'll ask you, why did that company, because they're primarily in another industry, right? Do you remember the story you shared with me, like why they got into the HVAC business?
Basically, the saying that an HVAC license was a license to print money.
Yeah. So that's the very wrong reason to be in the trade. So they literally got into this industry because they just saw it as a way to make a ton of money, and that's just the wrong mindset.
Yeah.
So you can have that perspective as well, where you're just in it for the money and not to serve clients, and that to me is just the wrong reason to be in business. Story I remember, and I shared this with you before the podcast. I had a friend who was a mechanic, and this has been over 20 years ago, probably 30 years ago now, that he told me whenever they bring a car in, they would be coming in for an oil change. Literally, if they sent the car out less than a $500 bill, they'd get yelled at by the owner of that company. So that's kind of the other end of the spectrum, where you can have the cheap person that either doesn't understand the cost of doing business, or they're using that as a loss leader just to get in the door and upsell stuff, or then the other end of the spectrum where you're just gouging people for the wrong reason of just trying to make money. So we certainly don't find ourselves in either one of those categories. Like, we want to be in the middle, where our whole goal here at Fixed Right is just to be the best value, and I think some of the things that we're going to talk about, when we were talking about before the podcast, kind of the conversations that go behind closed doors here versus the conversations that go on at some other companies. Certainly not all, because again, we've got great competitors around here that we call friends, and this is not about us saying we're the only company to do business with. But again, we just want to educate why us versus keeping yourself safe. If you don't choose us, at least how do you know to keep yourself safe from other people out there? So along those lines, what are some things that kind of drive you nuts in the industry?
Just the fact that there's so many people out here that say they're doing the right thing, and they're just putting something in and charging the customer and making it work, but it's nowhere near right. And I've come behind service calls and just shake my head, and I'm just like, how did anybody come up with the idea to even try to make this work? And the customers, it is not their forte. Obviously, that's why they call it somebody else. So they don't understand what it's supposed to do. They just feel some cold air coming out of the vents and think it's right. And it's so far fetched from being right, it's ridiculous. And the fact that they can do that, get paid for it, and get away with it just drives me nuts. So everybody else in the trade is taking the time to learn the right way to do it, and putting the time and the effort into it, and taking the time to put it in right to start with. And then what they do is just, I don't know, baffled.
Agreed. So let's talk about talking a little bit about things to be wary of. Let's talk about some good competition, right? Because we know we do have some good competitors, because I don't want this to be a competition pod or a bashing podcast, because that's definitely not what the intent is here. And I know I gotta be really careful in how we're talking about all this, because to be really clear, my intention is not to bash any other company out there. I just strictly want to keep people safe. So good competition, because obviously we both came up as small contractors ourselves, right? Like
Mhm.
you've been a one man show, I've been a one man show. Neil shared last week, he's been a one man show. What are the downsides? Like I'd say we always would have been good competition to any other contractor in the area, because we were honest, hardworking, doing things the right way. But we also knew that we had our limitations on what we can do. And we were talking about this a little bit before the podcast, is what are some of the downsides of being a smaller contractor that maybe, I won't say doesn't qualify as a bad contractor, you're still a good person, but we went through our our stresses of being small. So you want to share a little bit about that?
The stress of that is it's being undermanned. It's trying to keep up with the demand of the customers, because obviously if you're doing good work, your clientele is going to grow. So your clientele grows, your customer grows, your workload grows, but you're still one person. So trying to keep up with everything and keep everybody happy is it's really a struggle. You want to do the best job you can on every job you do, and you want to get to every job you can, but it just gets to the point where it gets overwhelming, and sometimes you have to push customers off, which nobody ever wants to hear when it's 100 degrees outside, is I can't get to you for 2 days. So the biggest thing is being able to have the company staffed well enough with the people to be able to handle the workload. And it's a huge challenge and a battle, because if you have enough people all the time to handle the summertime, sometimes you have too many people in the wintertime. So you have to find the balance there to where you have enough people to handle the load, but not so much that when work gets slow, you don't have to send guys home. So it's really a struggle, especially on your end. I can only imagine what it goes through when the company gets this size.
Gray hairs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You shared an interesting point about like service versus install with being small. You want to kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yep. When when the install comes, it's hard to do by yourself to start with, and it takes a while. So much time you're out there for a day. So if you have installs that you've done previously that you have a problem with, it's hard to get back to that when you've already promised the customer their new system tomorrow, and then you have a customer you put in last week and something happened to that system, it's not working. If you ever see how a customer spend a bunch of money with you that just says, hey, my system's not working, so you already promised this customer, hey, I'll get you working, and trying to get to everybody, it's a struggle. So sometimes the one man company be a little bit cheaper because he doesn't have the overhead, but he doesn't necessarily have the staff to handle all his work at the same time. It's really a really hard balancing act.
Yeah, so you're on an install for say 6 or 8 hours for 10 hours.
Mhm.
Then you have three people who literally have no AC, that maybe just have a 10-year-old system, but now you got three service calls to do after an 8 or 10 hour install when you're already worn out. Maybe you're in an attic.
Mhm.
And maybe, like you said, if there's a warranty call on something you did last week or a month ago, well, now, okay, who's getting the short end of the stick? A lot of times when we're smaller, it ends up being our family,
Mhm.
certainly us, because we're running, on fumes sometimes, because we're trying to take care of everybody. One of our hardest problems is saying no, right? Because
Absolutely.
when somebody calls with no AC, how do you say no?
Right.
So that's the challenge of being smaller. And then talk about, well, what happens on weekends? Like if you actually you're gonna take a vacation and go away, maybe a one or two person show, but what happens on weekends? And I know we both have friends that, we know what happens.
Right. You have the opportunity of hoping you can call another company. Hopefully you're friends with somebody you have the relationship with where you can ask them if they can pick up your calls and try to take care of them for you while you're gone. Or you have the option of not being able to go anywhere and staying home. Or you have customers that you have to tell them, hey, I can't get to you for a couple of days because I'm not home. So
Yeah.
it's just tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Where
That's one reason, well, we've joined up, Neil's joined up, and we brought on new team members. Is one of the things that we're really, really cautious of is we never want to get to the point where we're putting bodies in trucks, because I think that's the downside when companies start growing too much, is they start hiring people just to fill a role and to do a certain call count. But then that's where reputation can really take a hit. And I can think of a couple of bigger companies that are really, they're marketing geniuses, But on the other flip side, they've got some folks working for them that I just personally couldn't hire. And that's been one interesting thing that we joke about behind closed doors is we've had some interesting people apply to come work here.
For sure.
And there's just times when we do the background checks, we do the drug pre-screening, and the amount of times that people have not been able to pass those two is it's pretty significant how many actually can't get through those two phases. But they're in the industry.
Right.
So they're working for somebody, but they just can't be here. So we're never gonna hire somebody that we can't trust to be in somebody's home because reputation is everything. Like I owe it to Gordie and his family and every other person in this company that we bring one bad apple in here can ruin the reputation. So we're very, very cautious about who we'll send into a home. So that's why we'd almost rather, not almost, we do hire for attitude more than we do ability because we can teach the technical side, but we can't teach somebody to be a good person. So we hire great people and then we turn them into great technicians. So anyway, we've kind of shared a lot about that one. So on the flip side, what do you really enjoy most about the industry?
For me, it's the fulfillment of it. To be able to go out to find something that's somebody's, it's 90 degrees in their house and they're like, my air conditioner is broken. They have no idea. All they know is that they want to turn it on and make it work. I can go in and find out why it's broken, fix it, and turn it back on and have things go in cold air. It's a sense of satisfaction of knowing that I have the knowledge and the ability to be able to help somebody that really has it. It's a true fulfillment at the end of the day to look back and see what you've accomplished for the day. It's not just going to work for the day, it's what did you actually get done and do and accomplish in the day. Some people, I guess they just have jobs and they just go to work and go home. I can actually say, hey, I did this yesterday, I did that yesterday. It's just the fact of being able to go to something that's broken and fix it and have the fulfillment of saying, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, I love that because for me, and that was a big reason why, and again, this is me personally, but I'm speaking to, right now, I'm really speaking to people who are thinking about entering the trade, say like guys in high school right now, guys or ladies, we're looking for more female technicians, in the industry. But union versus non-union, that's a big thing, right now. And the way I always looked at it is if I didn't really enjoy people, and this is just for me, I'm not saying all union workers by any means, because there's a lot of union people that do enjoy people, but for me, just what you just said about solving problems and that gratification, I really enjoy taking care of people and solving problems. Where like for union, I'm driving to Northern Virginia or DC, going up on a rooftop, going down in a boiler room. So I'm still fixing stuff, but I'm not really seeing that happy homeowner
Right.
when I'm done. I'm with you. Like I love that gratification that when I go home in the evening, to know you made a difference for somebody in your community, to walk into a restaurant, be with my family, and somebody come up and say, "Man, our system's been running great since y'all were there. Thank y'all so much." Like you're making friends every
Right.
single day while making a living. Like I can't think of a better way of making a living. So I'm 100% on board with you with everything you just said.
And it's not only that, it could be the slightest other thing that goes on during the day, just up above and beyond the job. Somebody else has something else in their house, an elderly person that can't reach something or do something, changing a light bulb for somebody during the day while you're there, or just somebody that's having that bad day and you can just say something to them that brightens their day while you're there. It's just so many opportunities throughout the day because you interact with so many different people and every day's no 2 days are the same.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
I love it. Yep.
Yeah.
So since you've been here for going on 3 years, as I shared, since being here and again being in the industry for 30 years, what are some things that you see that kind of differentiate us from some of the other companies that are out there, or just in general, like things that you really enjoy about being here that are differentiators for Gordie and for us as a company?
Numerous things. Number one is the people that come in and work every day. It's just everybody's like a family. Everybody generally cares about each other. How was your day yesterday? How are you? How are you feeling? Okay? Do you need anything? What are you doing today? Is there something you need a hand with? Everybody's generally here for the other person all day long, every day, no matter what it is. We had an instance the other day where somebody got hurt and I wasn't there, but I heard about how everybody just jumped right in to take care of him to make sure he was the priority, he was taken care of, and everything was good. That speaks volumes because there's sometimes people in companies that just don't care. So to know that you're coming to work for a company every day that just is there for you. You could be having a bad day and you can pull somebody aside and say, hey, I need to talk to you for a minute. whoever it is will give you their shoulder and their ear whenever you want it. The fact that um, the way you run your company is when you're going to work and you go to work for Roy White to do the job, and he's like, this is your job, this is how you're going to do it, and you're going to do it right. And that's just how every job gets done. It's not no put a band-aid on a piece of bubble gum, make it work, whatever, make it right. And that's why it's called fixed right and guaranteed, because it is. And I can look anybody in the eye and tell them, whoever comes to your house, you're going to get the quality job that you're paying for.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And certainly we appreciate everything that you and everybody here does. And I look at my role as not so much as almost like if anybody is familiar with like an organizational chart, it's usually like the owner or the boss is on top, right? And then you got a couple managers and people down the bottom. We kind of flip ours on its head where to me, I'm down at the bottom, like technicians or CSRs, ladies that answer the phone. To me, they're on the top, like they're the first line, the first interaction with homeowners, with people in need. So my job, to me, is to support you. So whatever you and anybody else in this team needs, that's my role. It's not to go tell you what to do, but like, how can I support Gordie to make sure if there's something Gordie needs tool wise, maybe there's a new technology out that we need to make sure we get Gordie the coaching on. That's my role, is to make sure I'm always putting you in a role of being successful. So I appreciate you sharing that, because that's something I do focus on, and it's nice to.
Absolutely. It didn't go unseen. It doesn't go unseen for sure.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the teamwork side of things, and I think that's a great point. And here, I think one thing we've been very blessed with is our culture. It's not about me. It's always we.
Right.
So we versus me, or we over me. We're a total team, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So one last point, or one last question, and we'll kind of wrap this up. Is it safe to say you've been through a lot of tough times in your life?
Yeah.
Some challenges.
Yeah.
You impress me probably as much as anybody else that I've ever met, that with some of them, we don't have to go into details unless you just want to, about the challenges you've been through in life, but the way you show up every day, smile on your face. And I've seen you on some tough days. I mean, you've been here for 3 years, and I've seen you through a couple battles during that 3-year period. But just the way you show up every day, man, you impress me so much. Can you kind of share some wisdom of like, how do you do what you do? Like, you can go through some tough times, but it's like you're smiling right now. Like, you'll smile when you've got some crap coming your way. And I don't know how you do it, man. You amaze me.
I don't know. It's part of my nature. I mean, it's just kind of always been who I am. Like, I just realized that, you gotta be thankful for what you have. Everybody takes for granted what you have. First off, nobody should do that, because in the drop of a hat, anybody's day is going to change in any kind of a way, and you never know what it could be. This one's kind of to my wife, because, I was going through some hard times when I met her, and one of the things she told me one day was I was a little upset first thing in the morning about something that happened, and she goes, "You gonna let that ruin your whole day?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "It's your choice. It's your body, your mind. You can do whatever you want to do." She says, "You can take what just happened and let that ruin your whole day." She said, "Or you could say it happened and move on and enjoy the rest of your day." She goes, "It's your choice. You have a choice every day of how you want to handle your day. And if you want to have a crappy day, by all means, it's your right to do so." She says, "I'm not going to do that, but you can do whatever you want." And I don't know, that's kind of stuck with me. So your destination is your own. No matter what it is in life, your past, your journeys, where you want to go, it's. She always tells me all the time, "What do you want to do today?" And I'm like, "I don't know why." And she goes, "Well, the world's your oyster. What do you want to do? It's your option. It's your day. You can do anything you want to do with it." And everybody has to realize that we get so tied up into our busy schedule that everybody thinks that everything is, I have to do this, and this today. You know what? Sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone and find out what's available for you to be able to do. So, and until you step out of your comfort zone, you don't know what your comfort zone is. I've learned that in the last couple years. And Neil's another one that said something to me, kind of everybody the other day. He made a comment. He says, "You don't know what you don't know." And at first when he said that, I was kind of like, what does that even mean? So it took a while for that to sink in. And I was like, just the amount of truth that was in that statement alone was all that.
Agreed. Well, I tell you, man, like I said, you impressed me to no end, and there have been times when I've had a bad day, and I'm like, man, I got to show up like Gordy shows up because you're right. We all have a choice, and we always joke sometimes first world problems, right? Like sometimes just the perspective of the attitude of gratitude. Like, I mean, I think anybody in this country that has a car, we're probably in the top 1 or 5% of people in the world. Just the fact of having a vehicle,
Right.
puts us in a, and again, that's a financial thing, but we're wealthy from a financial standpoint just by having a vehicle, having a roof over our head. So that perspective or that attitude of gratitude. Now that doesn't mean that we're not going to all have significantly bad days. Like maybe we have health problems ourselves or a family member is even worse, right? It's one thing I know for like as a dad or a husband. Well, if something bad happens to me, yeah, that would suck. But that's nowhere near like if something was going on with somebody in my family, then I would just feel totally helpless. So those are some legitimate things that we deal with in life that we don't want to minimize by any means. But just like what you just shared about just having an attitude of gratitude and being thankful for whatever you do have in life. We've all got some great friends around us, great family members that we can be thankful for. So even in the midst of a storm, you know, sometimes it might be hard to see the blessings we have around us, but we do. And sometimes we have to kind of go through these storms. And I'll think about you, again, without sharing much about your challenges, but you mentioned your wife, Michelle. Well, probably the storm you went through over the last 10 years, you might appreciate Michelle more because of that storm you went
Absolutely.
through. And I think, again, sometimes we have to go through the storms in life to come out on the other side and have a better appreciation. I know for me, like many people know about my story of going through bankruptcy, through my real estate debacle and some bad decisions. But some of the blessings that we have here at Fixed Rate and some of the decisions that I make now, I think I make better decisions in our company now because of that storm I went through, many of my own bad decisions in real estate, but I think they help me make better decisions now. So again, it's that not just experience in life, but evaluated experience in life. So going through those storms, learning the lessons that were there to be learned, and then applying them to our daily decisions. Like you said, every day we have a choice. So well said, sir. And
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate your perspective. I appreciate all that you do for not just for our clients, homeowners, because you've taken care of so many people, and we get reviews all the time. People say, "Oh man, we love Gordie." It's I only want Gordie. It's amazing how many times we hear that one. I only want Neil. I only want Gordie. I only want so and so. You've got a lot of raving fans out there, but also here within the team, we can always count on you to be that ear to listen, that great word of advice, a great perspective. So I just truly thank you for all that you bring to this team, and you're a valued part of it for sure. So I'm gonna shake the left hand because I know the right one's right one's struggling today.
Yeah. Little mishap there, but we'll be all right.
Well, thank you for all you do, Gordie.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
All right. So for all y'all joining us, I hope you got some great information out of this. And again, I wanted to just make this a part two to when Neil was here last week talking about um, the things in the industry that we love, some of the challenges in the industry. So hopefully you can take some of this information and understand not all contractors or all HVAC companies are created equal. And again, not saying we're the only choice in town by any means. But part of this podcast again is just to let you know who we are, what we're about, what we stand for, and hopefully that does have you choose us. But if you do choose one of our competitors, for lack of better words, just make sure that it's somebody that you can trust, somebody that's licensed, somebody that just has your best interest in mind. And again, there are some very good contractors in competition around here. But again, just understand that just make sure you're checking the licenses, maybe doing some background checks on your own, because again, we've had plenty of people come through that we could not hire. But fortunately, we got great people like Gordie and Neil and so many other people on this team that you can trust in your home. So we certainly hope you'll choose us, but regardless, we hope that you'll find this information useful. And until next week, we hope you have a great day and a great week. Take care.
See ya.